Well, look at, you look at your average sort of 15 handicap golfer out on the golf course,
Yeah.
and he's got a I don't know, a 10-foot putt, and he leaves the 10-foot putt 6 inches short, dead in line with the hole, and he thinks it's the end of the world because he thinks he should hole all of those putts. Well, best players in the world, once you get outside 8 feet, miss more than they hole. That's the best of the best on good greens. So, I think TV has skewed our expectations so much.
Yeah.
That we
it
have
almost needs to come with a kind of disclaimer at the start. It's like, do not try and recreate what you're watching on here.
I do think we found, Dave, when we started playing more golf with each other, I think the first thing I'll say if I play with people that are mid-handicappers or above, it gets that point of course management. For me, we all do it, but say when they hit the ball out of play into the trees, then they see that small gap that Seve hit when he won that, through the wee gap, and they think that they can hit it through that dinner plate sized gap instead of just chipping it out. And I've found a lot of the guys that I play that are single figure handicappers learn quicker to, after just accepting, again, just chip it out and take your medicine. And I think we found that, Dave, playing more is just do not take that shot on, chip it out, get yourself back in play.
Yeah, everyone's trying to be Seve or Phil Mickelson.
If we look from a very practical perspective of, what's going to lower your scores quickly, it's not making more birdies. It's actually reducing the doubles and the triples.
Yeah.
That's that, even at the highest level, I'm always fascinated with, top players about, you can see if you look at PGA Tour, DP World Tour, every single week, you'll see big mistakes made on par fives.
Right.
Week after week after week, you'll see rounds unravel a lot of the time on par fives. And that comes down to what I call shouldism. And shouldism is a thought virus where it's a par five, I should make birdie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So then you hit a shot that actually is a little bit offline off the tee, but because you should make birdie, you then take on that 2-iron across the water where you've got to carry it 230.
Yeah.
And you might, even the top players, they might pull it off half the time, but the fact that they take it on and they end up in the water, I'm not saying for 1 minute, if you're a good player and you've got a 5-iron in your hand on a par five and there's no trouble anywhere, you should try and knock it on as many par fives as you possibly can. But, I've had some players who've had dramatically better scores in a year when they changed the behaviour on the par fives. So this is where it comes down to skill building. So if you said, okay, well, what's a really easy win? It's to look at your par five scoring averages and sort of say, right, okay, is my wedge play good enough? So what am I like from 100 yards to 50 yards, 50 to 120 yards? Well, if you spent a bit of time in the winter, and all the technologies available now that can help you do this, if you got a bit better from 50 to 120 yards, then when you play your par fives this next summer, you can have a completely different decision-making process. Where the golden rule is that, unless you're in position A on a par five where there's not too much risk and reward, if you're slightly out of position or it's a shot that you're only going to bring off half the time, you actually play into that sort of scoring zone as opposed to taking on the hole and then play a pitch shot. And it's surprising how many fours you'll still make playing par fives that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and rather than just always having to try and think, you've got to try and get it on there in two, if you're at kind of Chris's level.
I should make birdie, yeah.
Yes, indeed. And you mentioned there about training through the winter, Karl. At this time, Chris and I, we're sort of taking a bit of a reset here. We want to really try and train effectively over winter. Now, because of the UK winters, we're up in Edinburgh, there isn't as much opportunity to get out on the course or play at all. So, even thinking about training away from the course, you talk a lot on your show and you talk a lot in your books about the stories that we tell ourselves, how that can really affect what we do on the course. So, like in terms of stories, do you want to just tell us more about that, and then maybe how we could almost change the stories that we're telling ourselves so that whenever the good weather comes back in again, maybe some of our kind of belief system might be a little bit different towards golf?
Yeah, I think it's an area where it's fascinating, and the potential benefits from doing stuff around this are great. I mean, we're basically just all a collection of stories. We're a narrative in the sense that we carry around a story about our ability, about our capability, how do we belong in a group, all the things that we've already talked about. And if you tell a story enough times, then it becomes a reality, doesn't it? You know, we only have to look at the world in general of what people believe in. Some of the crazy things that people believe, it's because it's a story that's repeated enough times. Well, our own personal story is probably the most important thing. And a great exercise everybody could do is in the winter nights that we've got now, where you can't get on the golf course, is just spend one night where you write out your current story. And by that I mean just give yourself some time and write out in detail your current golfing story. How do you talk about yourself as a player? What's the patterns that you run? What are the things that show up over and over again? Get a really, really clear picture of the current story.
And just like, almost, sorry to jump in, Carl, but almost like a kind of stream of consciousness, just let the pen go, just write.
Just let the pen go. Almost see it as being like a journalist writing a story about your golfing life, and
Okay.
put it and let the pen flow, get it all out. How do you react to bad shots? How do you react to what people say? How do you talk about your putting or your chipping or whatever it may be? Because usually there's an element of everybody's game where I call it wearing the monument around your neck. They'll put a monument around the neck that I'm a bad putter, or I'm a bad chipper, or whatever. Write all that down and see it for what it is. You see that here's again, I'll swear again, you'll realize that most of it you've just fucking made it up.
Yeah.
You've made these stories up about yourself, and then when you realize that, you think, okay, actually, what about if I then the next night wrote about the future story, the golfer actually who I want to be? Who do I want to be on the golf course? What do I want to experience? What conversations do I want to have? Where do I want to play? And not just necessarily about results. How would I be? How would I react to bad shots? How would I deal with setbacks and things like that? How much would I enjoy the game? And it's a lovely exercise when you go, right, this is the old story. This is the new story. Which one do I want to live out? Which one do I want to be? Do I want to keep repeating the same old story? Now, the fact that you've written out the new story, at least your brain has now an option. It's got a different map to follow. And I would, strongly recommend, if I'm working with a player, that's one of the things that we'll do is just get some clarity on who you want to be on the course. Now, not everybody's going to do this, but I'm kind of assuming if anybody's listening to this podcast like they listen to mine, they're pretty serious about the game. They want to see what they're capable of. They want to see what they could achieve. Well, unless you change your story, I think no amount of lessons or no amount of working on stuff is really going to make much difference until that story changes. Most golfers, I want to be more consistent. Well, most golfers are remarkably consistent. It might be bad, but they're remarkably consistent.
And see how you were saying about having the two stories, and then say when you're actually in the game, like playing, and say you start playing bad and you start jumping into the bad story of yourself.
Yeah.
How do you, if you see that shift happening and you want to try and catch it early, how do you basically?
Well, the first thing that happens as a result of this exercise, Chris, is that you start to notice it.
Right. Okay.
The problem is with stories, we don't notice them. They just run. It's like a robot. It's almost like we're programmed to behave in a certain way. I was doing a golf school down at West Hearts last year with a guy called Marcus Bell, who's a great coach, GRF Golf. He's got a good guy for your podcast. He's got fast.
Yeah, his YouTubes are brilliant. I've watched some of his YouTubes. Like, he does some amazing stuff with players. Yeah,
he's a lovely guy. Anyway, we're doing this golf school, and we're out on the golf course, and it was a beautiful, beautiful summer's evening on a lovely golf course. And admittedly, we were a bit slow with the school. There was like three balls, and we were taking our time. But the course was relatively empty, and I could see this guy coming up behind us. And I can see as we play 2 or 3 holes that the shade of his colour in his face is starting to change and deepen and get redder and redder. And I can see him getting more and more annoyed that we're holding him up. And he eventually comes over, and he says, slow play. He said it ruins my game. And I don't think he appreciated my answer, because I just looked at him and I said it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And that was a perfect example of, he is a guy who's so much into his story that slow play ruins his golf.
I can be one of those people.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, it's a lovely summer's night. You've got numerous options here. You can get very angry about being behind a golf school, or you could perhaps hit a few bunker shots on each hole and do some more putting, or he could have gone to some other holes on the golf course. It was quiet, but no, the story kicked in, and he was so invested in the story. And I thought, how many times has his game been ruined in normal competitions because slow play ruins my game?
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of a story. Now, do you want to keep living that story, or do you want to actually grow up and have a bit of flexibility?
See, I've found it before where, like, say, external life stresses before I play around. I've found that before I go up, I'm almost like, say, if my head's already on something else, then I go to play, then I'll be like, oh, it's because it's like I'm already building that story before I even get to the course. So does that mean don't go and play because I'm already in that kind of funk?
No. The thing would be, Chris, is recognise that you're just in a story. Now, when you recognise you're in a story, you can actually choose to be somewhere else.
And that thing that you said, Karl, about writing out what you'd like the news story to be, are you kind of saying that it's almost like your mind then starts to problem solve and figure out, well, how do we get a kind of roadmap to this story? Because let's be clear here. I don't think just writing out here, I'd love to split every fairway and I'd love to hit like these shots that are really stiff into every pin. Like, that's not going to I'm not going to wake up tomorrow having written that down. But
that's delusion.
It sounds like maybe the mind then figures out, okay, you need to develop some skill here, and here. Yeah. So let's go down that pathway.
So the news story would be how you deal with bad shots. The news story would be how you improve your pace control on your putts from 20 feet out. And the news story would be how you get a bit better at bunker shots and things like that. It's not just closing your eyes and imagining that you're Tiger Woods. That's nonsense.
I've done that many times. It's not worked.
It's dealing with the reality. But the reality is, we stay so confined as a result of the stories in some, not just golf, in every facet of life, really, because we take on an identity, and that identity becomes real. But then when you realize you've made it up, the good thing is, when you realize you've made it up, you can choose to actually make up something else.
Yeah,
totally. And what you said earlier about this guy was getting so annoyed, and I've seen many people do that, and I've probably done it myself. But also, I was hearing you talk a bit about there was a bit of a lack of gratitude out there. People not looking around and realizing, well, I could be in a worse spot here, and just that I guess that theme of gratitude is another one that you talk about a lot on your show.
See, what one great tool to reduce the perception of threat is to be deeply grateful for the chance to play golf. So, gratitude isn't just this whimsical tree hugging nonsense. It's actually, it's it's a very, very beneficial thing to do, not just for golf, but life in general, to just how lucky, the next round that you think about it, the next round that you play, think about all the things that have to conspire in your favor for you to be able to play.
It's giving me goosebumps thinking about it. I love it. But yeah, honestly, it's just
Yeah.
we're like Dave and I are very lucky because we've got like the links courses. Just like I'm a member up at Nairn Golf Club, and it's just honestly the amount of times I just take a second and I just look out onto the water and I'm like, this is incredible. Like, and the gratitude, and then like you say, you just kind of like relax. You're not in that threat response. You're just kind of more
Exactly.
enjoying.
What you're doing, Chris, is you're not waiting for the game to make you feel happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I call it going first. I think most of us fall into the trap of I'll be happy when.
Yeah.
And you fill in the blanks on that. I'll be happy when I break 80. I'll be happy when I get down to scratch. I'll be happy when I win the major. I'll be happy when I get on tour. I'll be happy when I win a major, and then when I win a major, I'll need to win another one because otherwise I'm a one-hit mate. I mean, it goes on. we never get to that far off promised land.
Yeah.
Yes.
But actually, when you actually start from the premise of what a wonderful thing this is to be able to go and play today, that's a massive, massive way of reducing threat in your brain.
That's interesting because, you're saying that can actually reduce threat. And as you said right at the beginning, it's that perceived threat that can lead to so many horrible shots.
Absolutely.
So are you saying then gratitude, it won't necessarily just improve your experience out there, it could actually improve your golf? Is that what you're saying?
100%.
Wow.
100%. Yeah. I think I think gratitude is a very, very high performance state.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
If you look at the sort of you can't be in a state of threat and a state of gratitude at the same time.
Yeah.
So to deeply appreciate, and again, it's one of those things where some folks listening will think, oh, it's just too soft, all this, and I need to fix my slice and I need to get the club more on plane on the downswing and put more force into the ground. And we're probably not going to persuade those people to look at other areas. I've never ever said once in my life that developing better impact conditions and developing better motion in your golf swing is not an inherently beneficial and imperative thing to do. It is. But if you think that's the whole puzzle of getting better at golf, you're gonna miss out on so much.
Yeah.
So I come back to develop skill, but I think the big one for coaches and for players in general is to really get interested. How could I access my skill? Because I think if most golfers could access what they already have, there'd be some pretty happy players out there, and there'd be some reductions in handicap.
Yeah.
So, hope you're enjoying all the content on the How Low Can You Go Golf podcast. Really good stuff from Karl Morris when we sat down with him. Let's see what's possible this year. Like, why not this year sign up for Karl Morris's Mind Factor certification course? If you type in How Low in the link below, use our promo code, you'll get £100 off if you make a purchase. And it's all about exactly what he's talking about on our podcast, developing skills and then accessing those skills. Are you a player who wants to see what you're capable of this year? Well, why not take action and sign up for the course? Or maybe you're a coach and you want to see how good your players, your students can become. Help them access their skills when it matters on the course. Sign up for the Mind Factor certification with Karl Morris.
Yeah. You tell a really good story that I think really captures the idea of being grateful for getting out there and playing. You talk about the Tuesday boys. Do you mind just sharing that with our listeners? Because I think that captures a lot of this so well.
Yeah, it was Gary Nichol and myself. Gary, who's up in Edinburgh at Archerfield. We wrote a book together. We wrote 3, The Lost Art of Golf, and we didn't know whether to go with this story at the beginning of The Lost Art of Golf because it was about gratitude. But it was a story I'd related. It was a sort of challenging period. My mum was really struggling. I mean, she's passed away now, but she was really struggling. For those listening, I'm sure everybody's been touched by this probably, that she got dementia. And
I'm sorry.
when you have a parent who gets that, you lose them twice, because you lose them first of all to the dreadful disease, and then you eventually lose them when they pass away. Anyway, it was going through that period, and she'd had to go into a nursing home and all the rest of it. And I was down in the south of England, and I was walking out onto a golf course where we're doing a kind of corporate thing later that day, and it was very early morning, like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. It was kind of like it was one of those mornings where it was good to be out there, because there was a bit of warmth coming in the sun,
Yeah.
and the course looked beautiful. And I walked out, and I walked past this tee, and was walking around, and something made me come back to the tee, and on the tee I saw a bench. And at a golf club, if you become anything, if you become a notable person in the golf club, when you pass away, you get a bench, don't you? You get a plaque and a bench if you've been, served on committees and things like that. Anyway, I saw this plaque on the bench, and it said, "To the Tuesday boys." So obviously, the Tuesday boys, you can imagine these were a bunch of people who must have played every Tuesday. Week in, week out, year after year, month after month, and you can imagine that they would have turned up, and they would have talked the usual golfing talk, and what were you doing last week, and my back's aching, and all this kind of stuff. And these guys must have done this so many times and played golf on a Tuesday that they became known as the Tuesday boys. But what was really poignant was I saw these names, and every one of them had a date where they were born, and then a date where they'd sadly passed away. And it really had an impact on me, because I thought, these guys, and it always brings a lump in my throat, these guys, every single one of them had eventually run out of Tuesdays. There were no more Tuesdays left, and I just thought, and Richard Bandler said to me years ago, he said, the greatest delusion that we have as human beings is that we think we're eternal, in the sense that we think there'll always be another chance, there'll always be another season, there'll always be another opportunity. And actually, the one thing we're all going to run out of is, metaphorically, is Tuesdays. So, we put that in the book, and it was just, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Friday, whatever it is, that just realize, and it's, as I say, it sounds a bit too sort of quaint and whimsical, but it's a precious thing the next time you get to play golf.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sorry, you go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, that story's like the shivers that were running through the back there when you were. It's a beautiful story, and I agree. And I think I was playing Turnberry 2 months ago, and I'm having a lot of these kind of moments on golf course, which I'm like I love, and it just makes me enjoy the game so much. Is just taking a moment when you're there, and just like the views, you're like I was saying, the links courses we have up here, it's just beautiful. And we all need to realize that we're just so lucky to be able to go out there and golf and enjoy these wonderful courses with our friends and make such good memories.
Yeah. And I think on that, Karl, I would imagine that really helps with some of the things we've talked about tonight, is like with acceptance, is almost, if we go out tomorrow, Chris and I, and we say, right, well, let's play this round as if this is our last ever round, because as you said, the Tuesday boys, at one point, it came that they each rolled in their last putt, they each hit their last tee shot ever. That's going to happen for everyone.
Every one of them ran out of Tuesdays.
Yeah.
So I think if you play the next round of golf, I mean, a great exercise, again, reducing threat. You can test it out for 10 rounds just before you play. Just answer the question and write it down. What am I grateful for today?
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
Karl, thank you so much. I'm realizing we're close to time and will not keep you much longer. Just as a final kind of bonus question for you, based on what we've just talked about, if you had to play your final round of golf tomorrow, where would it be? Who would you play with, dead or alive? And how would you want to experience it?
I'd play at Royal Lytham,
Nice.
a place that's very dear to my heart. I spent a lot of time there. It's a magnificent golf course. Chris, you mentioned about the great links courses up there. If folks haven't played Royalism, because I think I often say on my podcast, it does cost a few quid to do these things, £1,000 at Turnberry or whatever the hell it is. But you look at it and you think, if you're a golfer, and what do you want to invest in another 2-day piss up at the races or whatever, or spend 500 quid and play a great golf course. So Royalism it would be. I mean, am I allowed to play with anybody, whether I've played with them or not, or past or present?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Anyone you want.
This is going to be a weird 4-ball, this. So it would be Seve. It would also be Sandy Lyle, because Sandy was massively underrated as a player, and I still remember hearing him hit a 1-iron, and it was it was like a gun going off. And then a real curveball in there, and we'd spend all day looking for golf balls, but he was a hero of mine, bizarrely. Was Alex Higgins, the snooker player. I found him fascinating.
Right, yeah.
So it would be a very interesting. I'm not sure how Seve and Alex would get along, but it would be an interesting afternoon.
Yeah. Growing up in Belfast, we would have seen Alex Higgins. He would have been around Belfast. You would have seen him.
Magical talent. Yeah.
Absolutely. Karl, thank you so much. Just before you go, do you want to just tell our listeners where people can find you if they haven't checked you out already? I know you've got a fantastic show that we've referenced a lot called The Mind Caddy, and you've also got the Mind Caddy app, which I'm a subscriber to. Do you want to just tell people a bit about how to find you and all of that?
Yeah, the podcast is called The Mind Caddy. And for anybody who's a player, I suppose, the Mind Caddy app, there's a bunch of training games on there, specific ways to practice during the winter. There's an AI version of me, which is an interesting thing. Nice. Where you can actually ask it questions, which some people have said the AI is better than the original, but that's another story. So there's that. If you're really serious about your game, my life's work has been put together it's called a Mind Factors certification course. It's either for players or coaches. And it's a learning management system, and it's basically, it would have been a 3 or 4 day live training, but it's all put down in a sort of module that you can do on this learning management system that you can go through. There's a manual with it. It's a really in-depth study of my principles of what I've taught players. So that's something that you'd find if you're really serious about it as a coach or a player on the website's themindfactor.com.
Fantastic. Karl, absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can have another conversation in the not too distant future.
Yeah, definitely. That was fantastic.
I think the plan is to come up to Murrayfield this year. I think that's
that is in the pipeline, Karl, coming soon.
It's in the diary, so we're looking forward to that. So yeah.
Perfect.
You can order some good weather for me for when I come up.
I can't guarantee that, but we'll do our best.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. Thanks very much.
Lovely to meet you.
Take care, Karl.
All right.
Thanks
bye, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye now.
How low can you go?